Is it working? Is it not? Okay, we are live. Welcome back to another live stream repair. Before we get started, a couple things. It's been a few days, I think, since we've talked to each other. You know, had a stream, caught up. A couple of things have happened, eh? So, Apple unsigned 17.6, which was up until recently the version we've been using to restore HomePods. 18.0 brought a few changes. Surprisingly, like, the changes they made, like, it doesn't really make sense. Like, they're unencrypting more things, it seems. I'm not fully, I don't really understand, but basically, the iDevice Restore, the tool that we use to restore the HomePods, either it introduced a bug in a recent change or it didn't play nice with 18.0. But in any case, there's a particular version of iDevice Restore you can use to restore 18.0. And I've got an 18.0 IPSW up on my website and on the GitHub repo. So keep an eye out in the next few days. We are going to be... Sorry, there is a fly that keeps flying right in front of my face, and it is very distracting. I cannot maintain a train of thought with this. Boom! Out of here! Shoot. Alright. As I was saying, Apple recently unsigned 17.6. We've been able to build 18.0, but the current version of iDevice Restore does not work for some reason or another. There's a bug in iDevice Restore, so if you pull the version of iDevice Restore a few days older, then it will allow you to restore. Moving forward, we will be, keep an eye out for when that gets fixed. It should be soon, and all should be well with the world again. We've also started making docks for your HomePod. The idea with this guy is twofold. With a HomePod, let me see if I can find one. So with a HomePod, to restore it, you need it upside down. And this is plastic, so whatever you put it down on, it's probably going to scratch it up. This is perfectly sized to just set that on top, and it gives it a nice solid base for you to do your debugging duties. The other thing this can do is protect that debug port and dongle so you can set it upright on a table and plug that into your computer, or plug it into your Mac, I should say. That's all we know works with these at the moment. And use it as a USB AirPlay speaker. And once again, nice and solid. It's not going anywhere. I still have a few tiny tweaks to make to the dimensions before I start shipping these out, but I am taking orders now. They're 15 bucks a pop, and you can get one with your adapter if you want. The nice thing about this, I didn't even realize it, but I can also use these to pack and ship them, so it helps keep the dongle in one solid piece instead of getting possibly crushed in the box on the way there, and not a good time. I also, on my GitHub repo for the USB adapters, because you can 3D print your own USB restore adapter if you want to, I added the 3D print file and the SCAD file for these docks. So if you want to make one yourself and save the money, I encourage it, please. as cool and fun as it is to come up with stuff and make stuff, it gets a little tiring to keep making the same stuff, i.e. these dongles here. I'm gonna have to find like a manufacturing company or something that can crank them out for me, because not my idea of a fun time spending an hour or so a day putting a bunch of them together. Not when we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 HomePods that are waiting to get fixed. So, good thing we've got some beer, because it's going to be a long stream today. First, let's just go ahead and put everybody's name up on the screen. We got Joe. After Joe, we will look at Mike, and then Nandan. John. Paul and Todd. Do we have enough room on the screen for all these? Anne and Jason. Jason even has 2 of them. So, quite the queue of pain today. Where's my bottle opener? Ah. Alright, let's get started. And might I say, I just think it's absolutely cool that I can write a few lines of code to create a 3D object from nothing and then print it, and it just exists. Like, it blows my mind. Where's my knife? It looks like we're using the X-Acto today. I don't even know what's wrong with Joe's HomePod. Probably no power. Yes, the power cable is removable. Okay. Yes, oh, and if you want to take a look at the table dock, I've got it up on my website, nixfix.com/shop, and you can go to the GitHub repo for the USB adapter, and I've got the 3D print files there if you want to make your own. Alright, so we've got no lights, no power, no nothing. That is a classic no power issue. Let's shoot Joe an email, and we will jump right on into it. Partially my fault for the huge backlog. I had been waiting for DC filters to show up in the mail so we can actually fix people's stuff. I know, I'm pretty much just rambling on and not actually doing anything here. We're shooting Joe an email, and we'll do some stuff. Okay. Now we can do this. Tim! Welcome, welcome! Oh, buddy. It looks like a fat stack of no power, I tell you. At least 6 or 7 of them here are no power. We might have some death farts or a brick or two in the pile there. But it doesn't look like we're gonna have any exciting repairs today. Dare, welcome to the chat. They ask an excellent question. Is it worth it to replace the diode if it's outside of the date code? For those that don't know what they're talking about, the diode is the component that typically fails on the amplifier inside of these HomePods, and it's what causes the no power issue. It's by far the most common problem these things have. And the date code they're referring to is a number that is printed physically on the diode that correlates to when it was manufactured. And what we've been noticing, and to answer Dare's question, is we've only seen, still to this day, after thousands of HomePods that we've fixed, and then also the fact that nobody's reported otherwise, the only date codes that fail are those two in particular, the 46K and 48K. So we don't bother replacing the diode if it's not that date code. And if I were you, I wouldn't worry about it. From what I can measure on the amplifier and what I can see, it's not like the diode is under-spec'd for the task. It seems like, aside from those 2 weeks worth of diodes, they are perfectly fine diodes for the task at hand. It is just those in particular that have that problem. Now that said, if you're working on a HomePod that doesn't have a power issue, it turns on just fine, but you're working on it for whatever other reason, and you do see that it has a 46K or 48K diode, even though it's still working, you absolutely want to replace that. Save yourself the trouble having to go back in the future, because it will almost certainly fail on you. But that said, and that said, if your HomePod is working just fine, don't go rushing to take it apart or pay someone to take it apart just to even find out if it has the bad diode or not. Just keep using it like any other HomePod. Don't worry about it. If it has a problem come up, then the problem comes up and you can take care of it. If you don't put problems off, then you are good. Fix problems when they come up. Don't worry about it if there aren't any. We've got quite the crowd today. Where did you all come from? How does our subwoofer look? How does it smell? All good. Smart home sellout. What is up? I think that's a new name around here. Welcome, welcome. Uh-oh. Okay. Here we go with the thread locker on the power supply screws that is apparently made of super glue. Hopefully we don't snap the screw off and we have a extra work for us. Yes. Alright. Yeah, sometimes it takes so much force to get those screws out that you end up snapping the head of the screw off, and then you have to rip the stud out of the amplifier and replace it. Luckily, that's not the case this time. I have a feeling we're going to run into that today, though. The chances are high. The odds are not in our favor. There is no harm in tapping out and sending it in to me. We make it look a lot easier than it is. Took me like an hour just to get the plastic top off my very first time. And yep, my very first HomePod I ever fixed still works perfectly fine to this day. It's the center one in my living room, so I'll notice as soon as it does have a problem. Up close, here we go at the amplifier. Before we jump into replacing the dead diode causing their power issue, we're going to do a little bit of maintenance and replace these 4 ceramic capacitors. What happens with these is they are ceramic capacitors, and if you do any research on ceramic caps, one thing you'll find is that they have a tendency to naturally decay over time and filter less and less DC voltage as a result. Depending on what you're using the cap for, that may or may not matter as much. For this application in particular, it's quite critical that they maintain their DC filtering. So what happens is, these go bad over time. They start filtering less and less DC voltage, and that is amplified by the amplifier and sent to your subwoofer speaker. Now, what that does is put your subwoofer speaker and your amplifier under a whole bunch of extra load doing nothing. It's got to work it's working to amplify a whole bunch of extra stuff that you don't even hear. So it's gonna cook the subwoofer, likely kill it over time, and sometimes the amplifier will detect if there's too much DC voltage and do what's called what most people call a death fart. It's that loud buzzing sound followed by a restart. It's basically the HomePod's cry for help. Please stop using and get me fixed. It's like a panic. But it's a feature that's built into the actual amp chip here that Apple used, believe it or not. And it's thanks to that little amp chip that we've been able to figure out a lot of the repairs on these. Because there aren't any schematics for this board, but funny that Apple used this amp chip because Pal Raudio made a few variants of that chip, including one that they sell on an evaluation board with public schematics. So we were able to use that to determine the values of certain components. Not everything is shared, but it was a good place to at least start guessing and trying. But in any case, the datasheet for that amp chip says that it does not tolerate more than about 18 millivolts at the input, which if you're measuring at the subwoofer amplified, you would see, you know, upwards of 200 millivolts, 180 to 200 millivolts. So if you're seeing more than that, the filters are bad, and you're out of spec as far as the amp is concerned. But we don't see death farts until it's reached like a couple thousand millivolts. Alright, we've got fresh filters on there. Let's flip this around. We're taking our sweet time warming up here. We've got plenty to fix, so... there is no shortage of shorted diodes to replace today. There I go talking for 5 minutes again and completely forget everything else. What do we got going in the chat? I'm gonna upgrade. You're still on an 8 plus. Haha. My upgrade path for my iPhones went like, I'm currently on a 14 Pro Max. A year and a half ago, it was an upgrade for my 11 Pro Max, which was an upgrade for my 6S Plus. So I don't upgrade too often, but you got me beat. I'm waiting for the market to cool down a little bit. I probably won't get a 16 Pro Max to replace my 14. I'll probably end up waiting till the 17 comes out and then importing a Hong Kong 16 Pro Max model because they have dual physical SIM cards. And I need dual physical SIM cards because I work with a lot of hardware at my day job that sometimes requires an active cell card or a SIM card to test functionality, and it's not possible with eSIMs. You can't just swap those around. So, especially with a lot of the hardware I work with, so it's just a lot more convenient for me to still have physical SIM cards. And I've got 2 of them because I've got my personal line and my work line. So if you want 2 physical SIM card slots in a modern iPhone, your only 2 options are the China model and the Hong Kong model. But you don't want the China model because it has Wi-Fi calling and FaceTime disabled. So your only option is the Hong Kong model, which has everything. It does not support 5G millimeter, like the millimeter wave 5G, whatever the heck. But I still get 5G, like the first gen 5G and all the 4G. It's perfectly fine for me. The same holds true for the 14 Pro Max, the 15 Pro, 15 Pro Max, and the 16 Pros and Pro Maxes too. If you need a dual SIM iPhone and you don't want any restrictions, Hong Kong's your bet. It's your only bet. There are single physical SIM plus one eSIM iPhones. Those are most of the international unlocked ones that you can import. But I'm a little salty that all of the US variants did away with any physical SIM. You got an AM scope and your hot air station. You got what'd you break on your second one? You break the display? Those displays are pretty hardy. As long as you don't bend it, they take quite a bit of damage before they give up. The ambient light sensor on the top isn't necessary. It can be broken. It can, as a matter of fact, I break the ambient light sensor off on my colored HomePods so that the display is max brightness and it shines through the colored top nice and bright. You peeled like the plastic layer off of this guy. You can just stick that back on, that's no big deal. I give a heavy warning to people not to split those layers apart. Just cause you can break that light sensor off, and it does cause damage and you lose automatic brightness. But you can also scratch that up pretty good. There's that bare PCB underneath. If you scratch too deep, you can cause problems. Basically, I just try to help people avoid any problems by telling them to peel this up as a unit instead of the plastic layer and then the display. But it's not the end of the world if you did separate them. Yeah, and that little chip right here, that shiny guy right there, that's your ambient light sensor. HomePod will work just fine without it. Yeah, that's usually why people try to buy the display off me too. I get emails all the time, hey, do you have display for sale. And I'm like, of course I do. But I bet I know why you want to buy one. And let me tell you, you don't need to. 9 times out of 10, oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome. Okay, great. I'll just not. Thank you. And good. I don't like when people buy my parts. I like to keep my parts for myself. More parts for myself means more HomePods for myself. And more HomePods for myself means that much closer to the goal of 500 HomePods. What will happen when you turn on 500 HomePods? Can you AirPlay to all 500 at once? Support the channel and we'll find out together. But don't buy my parts. That's a part of the reason why I stopped selling HomePods altogether too. Partly because whenever somebody wanted to buy a HomePod, I lose out on all those parts. I gotta put a working HomePod together and send it to them. It's not like I wasn't making enough money off of them, but I just personally, more often than not, needed the parts more than I needed the money. And it's interfering with my goals. If people want to buy a HomePod, they can buy a broken one and send it to me to get fixed. Will the Home app even support that many? I don't see why not. When I was working with the senior executives at Apple a few years ago, troubleshooting a different HomePod issue, I brought up something along the lines of, do you guys even have like commercial or enterprise customers that have a bunch of these? I made a comment along the lines of, I bet you guys probably don't even see people that often with these many online. And one of the executives said, oh, we absolutely do. There are businesses and companies and, education out there that have. I don't know how many, but they said more than I had. And at the time I had like 50 or 60 of them. So that would have been maybe not quite, maybe just about 2 years ago now. I had to sacrifice many of those since then for various repairs for others over the years, but we're slowly catching back up. And that's one of the great things about AirPlay too, is if I'm not mistaken, AirPlay is multicast, and multicast tends to handle large, like things like that, where you want to AirPlay, you want to stream music to 500 speakers at once. Multicast seems to be one of the better protocols to do that with. Huge caveat though, I'm not a network guru. I'm not even a networking nerd. I just barely know enough to get by, so that could be completely incorrect. But that's my suspicion, is it would not only handle 500 or more of them, it would do it just fine. Boy, we really took our times on that one, huh? We're just going to heat the adhesive up so it's nice and soft and sticky. A lot of people ask me how I line this back up, and it's kind of by feel, kind of by trial and error, but you line this up so it can hinge on that lip there. Line up your volume buttons, and then we just angle it down until we can't see it anymore. That's as close as we're going to get it. We're going to stand above it, and we can see it's a little off center still, so we're going to adjust that until it feels like it basically settles into where it should go. And then we'll gently but firmly push that down into place. All right. Ooh, we do have an interesting one up next. This one from Mike. Let's make sure Joe's working. Beautiful. This next one from Mike here has been worked on before. Mike went ahead and took it apart already, tried to replace the diode, and I think they lost the tiny capacitor next to it.
I'm having trouble.
That is such a common thing that I actually have a common issue on my website called missing parts. And I specifically have a picture of the missing capacitor and the specs of that, because I myself have lost that capacitor before. But let's take a look. I actually bought like 100 of them to just have on hand for the occasion where something like this happens. Oh, that's a big box, Mike. I might send it back to you in no, I will probably send it back to you in a smaller one. Most certainly. Save a couple bucks. Ooh, we won't need those. Oh boy. I see parts. Here's a power supply. Oh, smart. There's the display in the top half. They taped the components to the box. So they had already taken it apart, tried to fix it. And I tell people, you know, I'll give you 50% off the repair if you send in just the component that needs repair. If you're not sure what needs fixed and or you want me to put it back together and test everything is working together, that's the normal repair rate. So here we go. Very nicely packed. But all for naught if this did not survive. Where's the amplifier? Hold on. Hold up. Oh, here it is. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Nice, nice, nice. All right, let us organize ourselves. What is that there? What is that? Oh no. That's the case for a microphone. That's the microphone casing. What's the microphone casing doing? You know what's even weirder is where it would have come from. It's just fine. There's not one missing there. So where did this come from? Any hints in here? No? How's our subwoofer? It's in good shape. Oh, there's our gasket. Okay. Aaron! Welcome, welcome. Yes, indeed, we've designed a dock for the HomePod. It's supposed to work with my USB dongle, and the idea is... here we go. You can attach the dongle to your HomePod, put your dock on there, keep your dongle protected if you're using it upright on the table, because obviously it sticks out the bottom a little bit. Even if you soldered your own USB cable, it's going to stick out the bottom. So this will protect it when you're sitting it on a table and using it for, say, USB AirPlay into your Mac. Also, when you're restoring a HomePod upside down, you can use it to protect the top from getting scratched. Since this is made of plastic, you gotta have it upside down when you're restoring it to put it in DFU mode, and yeah. That's up on my website, nixfix.com/shop. And we should be shipping those out in the next day or so. Obviously, I make everything here and pretty much as people order it. So, you'll have to bear with us. Once you tell us you want one, we gotta go to the printer and tell it to make one. Alright, we've got quite the collection of parts here. Let's investigate first what they worked on. I'm just doing a quick visual inspection of the amp all around to make sure we don't miss anything else that may have been broken off. It looks like we're missing a couple of things here, but nothing I can't take care of. So we've got a missing diode, of course. Our Schottky diode's gone. We've got a capacitor here that's gone. Another teeny tiny little capacitor should be right here next to that one. And then there's one more teeny tiny cap that goes right here. Also, there's a couple of resistors here that are missing. So they must have bumped the step down and goofed that, bumped all this stuff out of the way too. Alright, we've got our work cut out for ourselves. Nothing I can't fix, though. Here's what that should look like. Well, mostly. Here we go. This one's a little more complete. So I think we're going to need to take this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and this guy. Yeah. Okay, let's harvest our parts. Actually, I think we'll do one at a time. I'm gonna put the board we're working on up here, and I'm gonna pick one part at a time and try to put it on there. So we're gonna go for this one first, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one, and then that one. It's gone. It blew away. Nope, I see it. No, that's not it. Yep, it's gone. Grab another parts board. Alright, I've got our part. I dropped it. Oh my goodness. I'm not losing another one. Oh yes, I found it. Oh, good day. You are not going to believe how small this is. There it is. I gotta use my extra special eyes to see this one. Normal eyes won't cut it. The solder pads for the diode, I've seen worse. I think they're alright. I think we got that first little cap on there. Let's pull the next one. Oh, absolutely beautiful. It just pops right into place. As it should. And they're not going anywhere. Those are attached. That's good. Alright. The hardest ones are done. Let's get the little guys up there above the shot key, and then we'll get the big cap, and then we'll get the actual shot key. Alright, I got our big cap. I'm going to set that to the side because it'll be in the way if we want to replace the little one that's missing here. So we'll replace the little one, then we'll put the big one down. Yes! Alright. That's so close. I need to get this closer to me, though, to get it. Sorry, you guys can't watch this one. Okay. Is that on there? Yes, now it is. Look at that. Okay, now we can get the big stuff on. Well, actually, almost. Looks like there's a little more little guy. Believe it or not, this one is actually twice. Well, that looks way more than twice as big as the other guys. But this is easy. This is the easy one. And then our big cap. Now, it's okay that when we go to put our diode down here that it's touching the pads here, and that this capacitor's, you know, this is going to go here. It'll make more sense when we put that diode on. So I'll just shut up and get this, and then I'll talk when we get that diode on there. Alright, funny guy. There we go. Last but not least, the Schottky diode. Let's just make sure that the pads for the diode aren't connected to each other. Nope. It looks like we are good to go there. So this is what I'm talking about. The two little pins on the diode are currently now touching the solder blob for that top capacitor up here. That's perfectly fine. They are internally connected. What we don't want is that solder squeezing out and sucking anything else back in with it. Alright. Oh, buddy. So, in summary, we have replaced this capacitor, this resistor, this capacitor, and that capacitor, and then we put our diode on. Let's see if it works. I need another beer after that. If you'd asked me to do that kind of work more than 2 years ago, I would have. Said lol no. I don't know how to do that. Send it to the pros. Look at me now, Ma. I'm the pros. Well, let's not get too cocky yet. We'll see if it actually works. I need a screw for our power supply. Just one will do. Alright, so we're going to test all of their parts together here, so we can make sure that there isn't anything else awry. Whenever people work on their own HomePods and they give up and they want to have us take a look at it, I always prefer for people to send everything in so that we can make sure that it all works together again and that you didn't maybe break anything else along the way. It would suck for you to pay to send a component in to get it fixed. And I fix it because it had a problem, and you pay for the fix, and you get it back, and it still doesn't work because you broke something else and you didn't know. I think my mother-in-law left her phone here. Let me tell my wife. Okay, we need a power connector for this. Where is it? I have one. It's gone. Uh-oh. I'll grab another one. No big deal. Oh, these are all subwoofer connectors. Ah, there we go. Man, I bagged all these power connectors up, expecting people to want some to do what we do here like this. I have not had a single soul buy one of these power cable connectors. Oh. Still won't power on. Still no worky. Okay, let's do some troubleshooting now. First, we're going to try a logic board that we know turns on with a different display. Let's see what this does. Still nothing. I'm going to be sad if we did all that work and this amp still doesn't kick on. But I don't see any reason why it shouldn't work now. Everything is there. So let's try. No, it's the power supply's working. I can hear it kick on. Let's give the board one more look around, and if we can't see anything, then we'll have to swap it out for another. Ah, well, there's a short still on here. Oh, no, there isn't. Nope, we're good. I'm kidding. I kid. So, what's wrong? That step down looks a little far off. Let's scoot it over. I mean, that's probably not it, but Okay. Oh, I found the problem. Our teeny tiny little cap did not stick down. The one that goes right in there. It's stuck to my probe right now. Let's try that again. Is that on there? I don't think so. Nope. Alright, here's what we gotta do. We gotta get that diode back off so we can get this cap on. Yes? I think that's it. I think it's on there. Alright. Let's get that big cat back on, and then maybe this will work. Okay. I'm gonna give it a 50-50 chance this works. All right. Oh, it turned on for a split second. That's interesting. Oh no, this is my boot looping logic board, that's why. So we've got power. Oh my goodness, I think we fixed it. Let's get their logic board and display back on here, and we will find out. Ah, oh, we're so close. That's weird. Okay, theirs doesn't even do anything. It lit up for a second, and then it stopped. We are very close. Let's try. Let's make sure everything is on there still. Yeah. Alright, here's what we're going to try. One more thing, or one more attempt here at reflowing all of this. I'm just going to put some flux down. Make sure everything over here is as, as connected as we can make it. Okay. I'm also going to try a different power supply. Because who knows at this point. Oh, that's so weird. It barely turns on and then it dies. No hints here. I mean, it's gotta be related to what they did before we got it. Something in that area is still not good. Just for posterity here, let's grab another HomePod and make sure that their logic board and display. I'm expecting it to be just fine, so. Because it's behaving the same with two different logic boards and displays. Yeah. So, this one's got me stumped. I mean, there's a few more things I would be willing to try if I had the time, but I think for now we're going to set this to the side and we will move on to the next repairs for the day. I need to find another amplifier board for Mike here so we can get their HomePod put back together and get them bumping again. Let's put all this away for now. We'll come back to it. And let's take a couple-minute break. Grab a coffee, grab a bathroom, and we'll be right back. All right. We are back. Let's reorganize ourselves and we will dig into another HomePod. All right. Mike's HomePod. Not quite sure still what's wrong with their amplifier. We'll put it to the side and come back to it. Okay. We've got non-duns now. They have no power. Let's see if we can't get some victories here. Ooh, it's been a minute for you, hasn't it, buddy? Here we go. That is a definite lack of power. We've got a couple of watts pulling from the wall, so This looks like the typical dead diode repair. Let's knock this out. A little bit of rubbing alcohol. This is going to help with the glue that holds the speaker basket down when we go to pry that up. Another fine smelling subwoofer, if you ask me. Not that anybody's asking. But some of the most important questions in the world are the ones that people don't ask. There we go. Yes. That felt like it was really going to break there. Yes. Here we go. First up, our favorite filters that love to go bad and cause other problems like death farts and all sorts of bass issues. Let's get those replaced so they don't cause problems for Nandon here. Most excellent. Look at that 48K dated diode. All my homies hate 48K dated diodes. Or whatever the kids say these days. This is how you do it. Get that diode hot, poke it straight down until that solder starts to squeeze around, push it straight down and off the board. Easy as that. If you don't have a hot air gun, do not try to do this repair. I know others have said that they've been able to with the soldering iron, but it's not something I would recommend unless you have experience and spare parts for if it doesn't work for you. Get yourself a hot air station. It opens up a whole new world of repairs for you. And you notice how we don't clean the pads. We don't apply any more solder to the pads. All we do is we rip the old diode off, we put some solder on the new diode, and then we flow the new diode on. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. The tryhards will be like, you need to wick all the solder off the pads and clean it with isopropyl alcohol and then put new solder on the pads and then clean it again and then put flux down and no. No. Absolutely unnecessary. Absolutely necessary for certain things, but for this in particular, get the dead one off, put a new one on. Don't give yourself a bunch of problems trying to clean those pads off. I think that's to me what seems to be when people give themselves the most problems. If it's not breaking something getting in, it's cleaning the pads up to put the new diode on, and let me tell you, don't bother. I think I've cleaned the pads on those underneath those diodes probably once or twice ever. Ooh, that was exhausting. I need another beer. That's more like it. Uh-oh, it's about to get noisy in here.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet. For more info, I'm having trouble connecting.
All right. John is next. If you didn't guess it, you probably can. They got no power. Even removed the power cable for me. Very nice. Burger King foot lettuce. We got the usual dead diode symptoms. Let's get it apart and get it fixed. Niche. Welcome back. It's going pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good after figuring out the workaround with the latest iDevice restore bug and seeing that, yes, indeed, we can still restore HomePods with the latest 18.0 firmware. No problems. And I feel quite accomplished with my recent table stand for these guys. I don't know if you saw, but we came out with a design for a table stand to protect the dongle when you're using the HomePod upright to support USB AirPlay. And it doubles as a protector for the top when you flip it upside down and set it down on a table to keep the top from scratching. And I said it at the beginning of the stream, it absolutely blows my mind that I can just come up with some code that creates an object and then I can turn around and 3D print it. And then you've got you've got a physical object that you designed. It's so cool. It's the first time I've like designed something from scratch. The USB adapter. I didn't design the USB adapter itself. That came from Timstar's design. I had to tweak it a little bit to make it work with the probes that we use, but that was easy. I was just changing a couple numbers. But it was so cool. It finally clicked for me. It's basically create your object, create rules to modify your object, and then create additional objects if you want to add additional features. The last time I touched any kind of computer-aided design software, it would have been like 2010 or earlier. And I was in high school learning SolidWorks. But there's something about seeing the code of the object that you're trying to make that just clicks with me. Like it's my preferred. OpenSCAD, I love it. I absolutely love it. SolidWorks would be a close second just because I'm familiar with it. Two completely different pieces of software, but yeah, you definitely need to get a 3D printer. It opens up just a whole new world for you. Like, a few months ago, I was installing, or I was converting my 300ZX from a naturally aspirated to a turbo, my car. I was putting a turbo on it. And one of the upgrades that I wanted to do was a higher amperage alternator. And to do that, you gotta swap a few pulleys around, a few accessory belt pulleys. Because I've got an electric fan to cool the coolant, you know, when you're not moving. I switched that from the old clutch style fan. Well, shoot, I forgot what I was talking about. I know I was talking about my car, but if it's not HomePods, I'm usually talking about my car. To me, SolidWorks is... it seems really easy, but the difficult part is knowing the technical term for what it is that you actually want to do. But these days you can just search or AI whatever it is that you want, and it can explain it for you and tell you what to do. Oh, my pulley upgrade. Goodness of niche. You've got it down. Right. So, I was talking about 3D printers and you know, the things that you can do with it. I had recently upgraded the turbo on I had recently converted my Z to a turbo. And entailing that were a few other side upgrades, including replacing the cooling system in a bigger alternator, which required replacing the pulleys. And the pulleys don't just swap onto my engine from the version that I wanted. What I had to do was come up with got a little bridge there, that's not a problem. Those are internally connected anyways. I had to print a spacer because the pulley was sitting too close, like the replacement pulley was sitting too close to the engine, so it wasn't lining up with the rest of the belts. So I just designed, it took me like 10 seconds. I just asked ChatGPT to design a washer for me with these specs, and it told me how to, you know, it gave me the OpenSCAD code. I plugged it in. I tweaked the numbers here and there again to make it actually print the way that I needed it to. Because you can't just say, oh, okay, 10 millimeter diameter washer. Let me make a 10 millimeter object and print that out, and it's gonna one for one work exactly the same. It doesn't always work out like that. You know, you've got tolerances and variances in your printer settings, but I had to oversize it like twofold, and that was because the when I tightened it down, the material would compress a little bit. So even though it was a millimeter thick by design, it would compress a few fractions of a millimeter and not line up. So I basically, you know, thickened it. I made it twice as thick so that when it compressed, it was then the same size as the OEM washer. And I 3D printed the washer spacer for my pulley because you just cannot find the exact one that you need online. It's a specific part number from Nissan. But I figured I could just measure my crank snout and then make just a plastic ring. It worked. It's fantastic. It's so cool. that car ended up getting T-boned by somebody running a red light because they were too busy looking at their phone instead of paying attention, and getting absolutely obliterated. But I'm still alive and we're still fixing HomePods. And in my driveway sits a one-to-one replacement of that very same car. So all I can hope for is that I don't die too early from that accident. Oh, yes. Use AI for your code. I'm not saying go and like fully depend on it, but if you have no idea what you're doing, it's an excellent starting point, because it may not get you the complete solution, but it gets you a good way there. And then an interesting thing I've found is you get to a certain point with what you want out of the AI, but if you run into a problem and you try to get the AI to fix it for you, often you end up in this weird loop where it doesn't recognize exactly, like it doesn't really have spatial awareness, and it doesn't really think about how things interact with each other too well. And what I mean by that is, let's say you've got a cylinder object and a cutout of that cylinder object, and you want those two things to interact with each other a specific way, but you also want to add something on top of that. It's not going to think about the fact that this is one object and you're adding a ring to it, or instead I should create a separate object that's a ring and put that on top, so that way the two objects, whatever I do to this object doesn't affect this one too. Like when I cut a hole in this, it shouldn't cut a hole in this unless... whatever. I think you guys get the idea. It gets you a good way there, and then from there you can basically kind of coach it a little further. And by that I mean, if you find yourself in that dead end where you ask AI to help you fix a particular problem, and it suggests a certain fix, and you try it and that doesn't work, so you say, that didn't work, is there anything else I can try? And the AI suggests, yeah, you can try this thing instead. So the AI suggests various things to try to fix your problem. But when none of those work, it just basically keeps looping between those same solutions that it gave you. What you need to do at that point is just basically start a whole new conversation with it and try to rephrase your problem or your question a little differently too. Because what I've noticed is sometimes memory or context that it's learned with your conversation up to that point might be confusing or being more of a detriment than what it's contributing. So, like for example, I was trying to figure out how to keep this lip. Like I wanted this. I didn't want to cut out right here. I wanted this full ring. And the only thing that ended up working was creating an additional ring object that sits on top of my cone, which this is the cone. So I created a cone object, I created a couple of rectangular cutouts, and then I created an additional ring object that sits on top of it. And the ChatGPT struggled with adding this extra ring on it. It kept trying to modify my original cone object instead of just creating a new ring object and sitting it on top. And that gave a whole bunch of complications. Like it's trying to like add this extra lip to my existing cone, which was interfering with all my cutouts, and it was a mess. I started a new conversation. I gave it my SCAD file and I said, I need essentially a ring placed on top of this. Can you do that? And it did it. It worked. It was so cool. And that doesn't even... It works really good with OpenSCAD because a lot of times it'll just give you the code that you need to copy and paste, versus a lot of other software, let's say SolidWorks or Tinkercad or whatever, it can't give you code to just copy and paste. It gives you a list of steps and things to do. So you gotta sit there and look for the settings that it's telling you to look for, when in reality the setting's not even there anymore because it was deprecated years ago. And this isn't even a specialized AI for computer-aided design. This is just your run-of-the-mill free AI that you can find anywhere. ChatGPT, whatever Microsoft Copilot is. I don't know how Copilot handles it. Copilot's based on GPT 4.0, so it should be the same. ChatGPT is just my go-to because it's just what I've used. It was the first thing I tried, and it worked pretty well for me, and that's what I've used since. I poked Claude the other day. Didn't seem too impressive. Seemed maybe a little more watered down than some of the others, which was surprising because from what I saw on like Twitter, a lot of people were saying Claude was better than ChatGPT and it was overtaking it by some metric. I don't know. All that matters to me is if I can ask it a question and get a desirable result or outcome. That's all that matters to me. Oh, you're downloading OpenSCAD. If you want some starter projects, go to my GitHub repo for the HomePod USB adapter. It's Unbendable Straw's GitHub repo, and the repo name is HomePod Simple. And I've got a link to it on my website too, of course, under the blinking volume lights common issue. Anyways, you can take a look at my SCAD file for the adapter, which is based off Tim Starr's OpenSCAD file, and you can look at my table stand, which was all me, and I'm proud of it. Gosh, there's still 8 people watching? Alright. Appreciate you all sticking around. I'm sure 1 or 2 of you will drop just because I mentioned it. But I'm very curious where you all came from. I don't normally have this many concurrent viewers. Unless somebody posts a link somewhere. maybe it was just the stream title, and when people got the notification, they got real interested. Oh, yeah. Of niche. I forgot. I keep forgetting to bring it up. I finally added a brief description of the no power issue that you helped me find the other day. And I happily give you credit for it. I would like to know exactly what that component is and how to figure out a replacement for it, but it might not be possible. Alright. Does it work?
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet. For more info, check the Home app.
Yes, it does.
I'm having trouble connecting.
And our volume buttons light up nice and evenly. That is one fixed HomePod for John. Okay, who is next? Oh, I didn't even see your message. I got a HomePod which is stuck trying to update to 18.0. Any suggestions on what can cause it to not update? Yes. Not really, but kind of. It's not a great suggestion, but obviously doing a full factory reset is going to more than likely. Another thing you could do, you could try moving it to a different room in your home and seeing if that triggers it to update properly. You could try, well, if you add it, you gotta reset it to add it to a different home. So that's the only thing I can think of is try moving it to a different room. Try tweaking a couple of the settings here and there. Just get it to try to push a different. Just try to get it to push a config or a setting change to it, and kind of snap it out of it. Okay. We've got Paul's Pod. Ooh, I see packing peanuts. Oh no. Oh. Oh. No. Oh. Okay. They removed the power cable for us, so That negates that. All is well. Alright, let's get that out of there. I wanted to share the misery with you guys. Shared joy is twice the joy, but shared pain is only half the pain. Ooh, it looks like, okay, it's just a scratch. It's a couple scratches, but they are still nonetheless weak points that can make it crack if we aren't careful. Aside from that, it looks like a typical dead diode. So let's get this apart and get it fixed up. I would much rather see a box full of packing peanuts protecting a HomePod than a HomePod bouncing around a box with nothing else in it. That said, I hate packing peanuts. Unless they're the biodegradable ones that I can snack on. Because then, the way I see it, you sent me free food with your repair. That's almost worth a discount. Gosh, see, there's even one on just chilling on my desk here. They find their way everywhere. You already tried resetting it. Yes, okay, definitely give a create. I have 3 homes. I've got my home, my work home, and my test home. My home is here at home. My work home are all of my HomePods at my office. And then my test home is specifically for troubleshooting and adding other people's HomePods so that my home network doesn't get all cluttered from all these HomePods that keep showing up and disappearing. TT Media Services, welcome to the chat. That's a name I haven't seen there before. You've been watching me? That's creepy. You have 2 HomePods. Alright, that makes more sense. Worried they're gonna fail. Oh, mate. You know, I wouldn't worry about it. If they're working fine for you, just keep using them. Don't sweat it. That said, if your HomePod runs into any issues, then you don't want to keep using it. You want to get it fixed before it causes more problems and more expensive damage. But if your HomePod's working fine, don't worry about it, and don't go rushing to take it apart or paying someone to take it apart just to prevent anything from happening if it's working just fine. Wait until you've got a good reason to have it worked on. That said, unfortunately, they're going to need to get worked on at some point. They are very complicated devices. It's not as simple as a speaker. And a lot of people misconstrue the reliability of HomePods when comparing them against traditional speakers. Let me say something. Let's get this subwoofer out. If you want to get technical about it, this right here is the main subwoofer speaker. And in good shape. We never see these speakers fail. The actual speaker, the speaker, you know, when people are like, my home audio theater system has worked fine for 40, 50, 60 plus years, and my HomePod only lasted a few years. Well, it's because the HomePod isn't just a speaker. It's got the speaker, it's got the amplifier, it's got 120 to 240 volt switching power supply built in, an iPhone 6, and a simpler display. We'll say that. It's got a simpler display attached to it all. Entirely enclosed, pumping out roughly 100 or more watts of power through the amp to produce music. It's complicated. Now, I'm not saying that we should expect these things to only last a year or two, but to expect them to last 10, 20, 30, 40 years is kind of starting to push it. And if you haven't noticed, a lot of people's stuff, the more modern it is, the more problems it can have. Like, yeah, cool. My 40-year-old car is more reliable than my wife's, like, 5 or 7-year-old car. But most of that really has to do more with how much more complicated things have gotten, and not necessarily things being made worse. And I'm not saying things haven't been being made to lower standards. I'm saying that's not the only story. That's not the whole part of it. There's a thing called feature saturation. Something that I learned back in my early days of QA. Basically what happens is consumers and or companies get too carried away with adding so many fancy, flashy features, bells and whistles, that they start to lose sight or lose touch or lose stability in the core product itself. And I think for the longest time, Apple has been so popular because they don't succumb to features. They don't succumb to that feature saturation. They tend to focus on fewer things and refining those fewer things more, as opposed to having more. You look at the HomePod. It simply doesn't do as much as the competition. But what it does do, it does better than its competition. So much better. That's why I'm still fixing these things to this day. I wouldn't be fixing these if I didn't think they weren't worth fixing. I'm not, you know, I'm not perfectly innocent, but I will say, like, I'm not going to sit here and take money from people if I didn't think that these things weren't worth fixing. But my home's full of them. I absolutely love these things. And like I said earlier, shared joy is twice the joy. If I can bring, and I know how important music can be to people, and some people use these for accessibility. They're blind, they're hard of hearing, what have you. But if anything, if the only thing somebody uses their HomePod for is to enjoy listening to music, that's a shared joy that I can experience getting it working again for them. Because music is like one of the most important things to me. If I can't listen to music, there's not much point in being alive. That was until I met, you know, my wife and had a kid, but I still strongly feel that way. So, I'm passionate about music, and I'm passionate about having accessibility to not just listen to it, but listen to it like with an experience. I want you to be able to feel it. I want you to be able to experience it and not just listen to it. And HomePods did a really good job of that. They got Atmos. They've got the non-linear volume for the bass. In other words, when you turn the volume down, the bass doesn't turn down at the same rate as the mids and highs. And you've probably noticed that, because a lot of people say the bass response in these is excellent. And that's because it turns down low-end frequencies less, because you perceive them more. It's you hear lower-end frequencies easier than higher-end frequencies. So it doesn't need to even use as much volume. But it takes advantage of that. And so even at low volumes, a typical speaker, it's going to sound kind of flat at low volume. But with the HomePods, you still hear the bass. You can still kind of almost feel it. And don't get me wrong either. I love new features. I love updates. I love new things. I do not, and I will not take it at the cost of core functionality. It needs to be able to do what I'm buying it for good enough before I even care about the extra stuff. At the same time, you've got companies turning, selling hardware and saying, in 6 months from now, you're going to have an update that's going to give you the features that all this hardware is going to supposedly take advantage of, i.e. the iPhone 16 and Apple Intelligence. But I guess people that have gotten their hands on iPhone 16s have been very happy with them. More happy than what I've seen people were with the 15 release. That's alright. It's a good sign. For me, that means when the 17 comes out, I can get my hands on a 16 and have a good time. Listen, Niche, I feel personally called out by you specifying silly voice features being added to your car, because my Nissan 300ZX has both. It drives and it has a silly voice. I actually bought a Japanese voice module. They call the voice warning in the Z cars, the early Z cars, Bitchin' Betty. And I got a Japanese Bitchin' Betty. And I slapped it in, and now I have no idea what she's saying, but it sounds damn cool when she says it. Actually, I know exactly what she's saying, because, you know, the door's got to be open for her to complain, or the emergency brake has to be on, or your fuel has to be low, so it's usually obvious what the problem is when she complains. But it's pretty novel to have her do it in a different language. Oh, and then there's that guy that's got that swapped out his, like, what, Volvo? He had an old Volvo and he swapped the sound out for Toto's Africa. What is up with this screwdriver? There we go. Oh, TT Media. I keep looking at the chat and missing people's messages. So, I just saw you mention a new adapter for USB audio. It's ready. It's ready. And that's because it's the exact same adapter that we've been selling to people for USB restores. That's this guy. So, the same adapter that I've been selling for USB restores works for USB audio. And the USB audio is AirPlay. I've got more details on my website. But in any case, you've got the dongle and you've got the dock. The dongle's good for USB restoring and debugging. The dock is good if you want to sit it upright so that you don't put stress on the dongle, since it sticks out the bottom of the HomePod. Just like that. And you know, you set it like that. Bada bing, bada boom. Dongle is protected, not being crushed. All is right with the world. They will be shipping out The docks, that is. They'll be shipping out as soon as tomorrow. Got them up on my website, nixfix.com/shop. Are we putting this together or are we taking it apart? I'll be right back. I gotta use the bathroom. We are back. Okay. Yeah, this is embarrassing, but a testament to how severe my ADHD and my mental state really is. I have no idea if we were taking this apart or putting it back together. So we're gonna get that connected. Beautiful. Okay, we fixed this already. I honestly can't even remember that we fixed this one. But they're all starting to blur together these days. Okay. Let's finish this. And then we've still got 3 more. Is the first gen HomePod the least reliable so far? That is a question, that's for sure. Let me think about that for a second. Is it the most or the least reliable gen? I'm going to have to say I must say it unfortunately seems like it is the least reliable generation. Just purely because of how many we've had sent in and how few inquiries we've had on the second gen. Like if we look back at when we first started HomePod repairs, when we announced it and we started looking for people that needed repairs, there were a lot of people that needed repairs for their first gen. And to this day, it's remained consistent. 2 to 4 a day. Every day. So, the second gen, in contrast, I rarely get repair inquiries for it. Even though it's a new product, by now it is starting to fall out of warranty for a lot of US customers. So, I have had a couple of inquiries for them, but by absolutely far and large, the first gen is the one that still comes in for the most repairs. But it's also hard to tell if maybe there just simply aren't nearly that much, that many second gens out there. Maybe more people loved the first gen and there's more of them out there than the second gen, so we're simply going to see more of their, the first gen problems. That said, the first gen doesn't have the same no power issue that you see us fix many of these for here on the channel, because simply it's too new. Like, by the time they made the second gens, The diodes that they used in the first gen that fail are long gone. So they're using a newer, bigger diode. It's not going to have the same failure. That said, we still haven't really had a whole lot of time with them on the market still. And yeah, it's been, what, more than a year now? But we didn't start doing HomePod repairs until they were about a year and a half or 2 years old, I think. 2 or 3 years old even. So, we'll see. We'll see as time passes and the second gen age a little more. The second gen does look more complicated in some ways and slightly simpler in other ways. So, I would fully expect the same rate of issues. Not the same issues, but the same rate. Like, let's say 1 out of every 2 first-gen HomePods is going to have a problem that needs worked on. I would wager a bet that the same statistic would be for the second gen. Just not sure yet. Kind of contradictory to my previous answer, which was the second gen does seem more reliable than the first. Yet, I think it's going to have the same kind of failure rate. But I just have that suspicion, just could be totally wrong. Another one. What about the Mini? What about the Mini, bro? The Mini does not exist to me. I'm just kidding. The Mini seems less reliable than both, frankly. I don't know how they messed that up so bad, but they did. That said, again, that could very well be just because the Mini is more popular, so there are more people out there to experience a problem and complain about it. If they sold only 100 first-gen HomePods, but they sold 1,000 HomePod Minis, then of course you're going to hear more complaints about the Mini, even if objectively the first-gen HomePod is less reliable. That's just a matter of fact. I'm not saying it is, that's just an example. But the Mini, from my perspective, does seem slightly less reliable than any of the other gens. Maybe that's explainable, and the correlation is not meaningful. Do I not fix them? I generally do not fix the Minis because what I would have to charge to make it worth my time is more than you can buy a used one. And I hate to be in that position. That's kind of why we started the biggie repair business, was to solve that problem of there's no repair for it, you're going to have to buy to replace it. But the Mini is just, it's already so cheap. Used ones are already so cheap, and then my time is already so expensive that it just ends up not being worth it for most people. But I'm more than happy to give people a shipping label and be their e-waste if they don't want to keep their broken HomePods, be it a mini or a first gen or a second gen or whatever. And if I do ever find the time, I crack it open and try to figure it out and share that info with others.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet. I'm having
Beautiful. Okay. Folks, I think that's about all that I have the energy for here and now. I'm getting scarily hungry, and I haven't eaten anything today. We still have Todd and Jason to take care of, so we'll shoot them an email and let them know we're running a little behind and they can catch up on our repairs tomorrow. Maybe we'll be back later tonight for like a super late night stream and try to knock out the rest of that queue so I've got tomorrow to not worry about it. But in any case, I hope you all enjoyed this live stream repair. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, concerns, hopes, dreams, desires, feel free to leave a comment down below. You're also welcome to visit my website down there, nixfix.com. It's on the screen, bottom right hand of the corner. And if you still can't find it, I can't really help you. I've got a whole list of info there, including the common issues that we repair and the part numbers we use to fix those issues, as well as my shop where I sell a couple of stuffs, a couple of things. We've got parts, we've got boards, we've got cosmetics, we've got docks, we've got dongles. We got it all now. The only thing we don't sell is the whole HomePod, because I'm trying to get 500 of them, and I will not have you impeding my goal. So I hope you all enjoyed this live stream repair. That's just too cool.